October 25, 1944, just after dawn. Off the east coast of Samar, the Philippine Sea is restless, heaving under a low gray sky. The air smells of salt and burned oil from distant strikes. On the bridge of Japanese cruisers and battleships, binoculars rise as silhouettes break the horizon. Masts, smoke, small shapes, too small. At first glance, it looks like nothing, escorts, maybe transports, hardly worth slowing the engines of a force built to smash fleets. The sea carries a low thunder now, not from guns yet, but from thousands of tons of steel advancing at flank speed. Somewhere ahead, the morning light catches on white water as American ships turn into the wind to launch aircraft. The moment hangs, then the guns begin to speak. You can almost hear the shock travel across the water. Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force, battleships, heavy cruisers, destroyers, has come through the night, through submarine ambush and air attack, expecting a final reckoning with the main American fleet. Instead, they see a handful of escort carriers and a screen of tiny destroyers. The enemy is not where he should be. The horizon is lying. On the American side, there is no illusion. The men of Task Unit 7743, Taffy 3, know exactly what they are facing the instant the first Japanese shells come screaming in. The sound is different, deeper, slower. It is the sound of battleship guns reaching across miles of sea. Columns of water rise like city blocks around the carriers, the near misses drenching decks with warm spray and shrapnel. Alarm bells clang, orders crackle. The wind carries the acrid bite of cordite. These are not cruisers, these are monsters. And yet from the American screen, a small gray shape peels away and accelerates. The USS Johnston, a Fletcher-class destroyer, barely 2,100 tons, turns toward the Japanese line. Her bow digs in as the engines howl. She is charging. On Johnston's bridge, Commander Ernest E. Evans stands upright, his Cherokee ancestry visible in his bearing, his voice steady as he orders flank speed. The ship vibrates, every rivet alive. Johnston is armed with 5-inch guns and torpedoes meant for targets that can be killed by daring and distance. Ahead are battleships whose armor laughs at 5-inch shells. It does not matter. Evans knows the carriers behind him are launching aircraft that must not be destroyed on the deck. Time is life. He is buying seconds with steel. The first salvos from the Japanese cruisers straddle Johnston. Water crashes over the forecastle. Men are thrown against bulkheads. Johnston answers back, her guns barking fast and flat, shells skipping toward targets far larger than her. Smoke pours from her stacks as she zigzags, a living thing trying to outrun the inevitable. She closes the range anyway. Torpedo range, madness range. Across the Japanese line, confusion begins to bloom. Reports come in quickly, too quickly, fast-moving ships, aggressive maneuvers, smoke screens thrown with precision, torpedoes in the water. Kurita's officers call out silhouettes through optics clouded by spray and smoke. These destroyers do not act like destroyers. They charge like cruisers. They fire like they mean to kill something big. The scale is wrong. The behavior is wrong. The horizon is still lying. Johnston looses her torpedoes. Long white wakes slice the sea toward heavy cruisers. Japanese helmsmen swing hard, avoiding tracks that could rip open hulls below the armor belt. The formation begins to fracture. A cruiser is hit. Another turns away. The Great Line loses its clean geometry. Smoke spreads, thick and deliberate, American destroyers and destroyer escorts laying it down like a wall. Through that smoke, Johnston keeps firing, taking hits now, her speed bleeding away, her decks scarred and burning. Behind her, other small ships follow the example. USS Hoel, USS Heerman. They dash in and out of visibility, guns flashing, torpedoes running. Even the destroyer escorts, smaller still, meant for submarines, not surface duels, open fire. Their shells are pinpricks against armor, but pinpricks still draw blood when they hit exposed superstructure, when they start fires, when they blind optics and wound crews. Above them, American aircraft lift off from escort carriers under fire, pilots taking whatever can fly. Some planes carry bombs, many carry depth charges, some carry nothing at all. They attack anyway. They dive through flak at battleships, cruisers, destroyers, anything that moves. They strafe bridges. They drop what they have. They come back around. The sky fills with engines and smoke and falling metal. Kurita watches reports stack up. Enemy cruisers engaging aggressively. Torpedo attacks from multiple directions. Air attacks relentless. He orders maneuvers to avoid torpedoes, to regroup, to bring the guns to bear. His ships are powerful, but power requires clarity, and clarity is dissolving in the smoke. The small enemy force refuses to behave like prey. Johnston staggers now, hit hard, her speed reduced, her guns still firing. Evans remains on the bridge, exposed, directing fire, urging his ship forward even as the sea around him erupts. The distance between the Japanese and the carriers stretches, then compresses, then stretches again as smoke and movement distort everything. Minutes feel like hours. Hours collapse into seconds. And somewhere in that chaos, an idea takes hold on the Japanese bridges, an idea that should not exist, but does. Perhaps this is not a small force after all. Perhaps the main American fleet is closer than believed. Perhaps these destroyers are the screen of something far larger, drawing the center force into a trap. The horizon lies once more, and Kurita hesitates. Kurita's hesitation does not come as a single order or a shouted doubt. It creeps in quietly, carried by smoke, distorted range estimates, and reports that refuse to line up. On his flagship, the battleship Yamato, officers peer through optics that show nothing clean, only flashes, wakes, sudden shapes darting in and out of gray walls. The enemy force does not thin, it multiplies. Everywhere they look, something small is attacking with the confidence of something large. Out of the smoke, USS Hoel charges. She is closer now than any sane ship should be, her decks already scarred, her guns firing so rapidly that the barrels glow faintly in the dim light. Japanese shells fall around her, some walking closer, others overshooting as she turns hard, her rudder biting water like a blade. When she fires her torpedoes, the ocean seems to hold its breath. Again, the Japanese formation bends away. Again, capital ships maneuver as if the threat is mortal, because at close range, it is. This is the quiet truth Kurita cannot see clearly enough. Battleships fear torpedoes more than shells. Armor can defeat guns. Water cannot forgive a hit below the belt. And these American ships are close enough to kill. USS Hoel joins the fight. Darting between larger silhouettes, threading fire lanes that should erase her. She fires torpedoes at a battleship, possibly Yamato herself, forcing another violent turn. Guns meant to crush carriers now waste their fury on targets barely larger than the waves. Every maneuver steals speed, every turn costs time, and time is the one thing Kurita cannot afford to lose. From the American carriers behind the screen, pilots keep coming. Planes lift off through spray and smoke, some damaged before they even leave the deck. They climb into a sky already thick with flak. They attack from every angle, every altitude, giving the impression of endless waves. They are not endless, they are desperate. But desperation looks very much like abundance when it refuses to stop. Johnston reappears briefly through thinning smoke, limping now, her speed gone, her silhouette unmistakably wounded. Japanese guns find her again. Shells tear through her hull. Fires burn unchecked. Yet even now she fires. Even now she refuses to sink quietly. Commander Evans is still on the bridge when the final blows land, his ship shuddering beneath him, her story written in smoke and steel. Kurita receives word of damage. A cruiser crippled, others slowed, destroyers hit. Reports of enemy heavy units continue to arrive, each colored by confusion and urgency. No one says the words outright, but the thought is shared. This resistance is too fierce for escort carriers and destroyers alone. The Americans must be hiding something. The main fleet must be near. In reality, there is nothing hiding behind the smoke, except more courage and fewer options. The sea becomes a killing ground of fragments and wakes. USS Samuel B Roberts, a destroyer escort barely designed for this fight, charges as if she belongs among giants. Her guns fire until ammunition runs low. She closes the range so tightly that Japanese shells pass overhead too fast to arm properly. For a moment, the impossible happens. A ship built to hunt submarines trades blows with cruisers and survives on nerve alone. But courage does not make steel thicker. One by one, the American screen is battered into wreckage. Ships slow, ships burn, ships vanish beneath the waves, and still, the Japanese advance does not break through cleanly. Smoke blinds, torpedoes force turns, air attacks keep coming. The small ships die loudly enough to sound like an army. Kurita orders a regroup, then another course change. The formation has lost its shape, its rhythm. Battleships and cruisers are scattered, each fighting its own fight, reacting rather than advancing. His objective, the vulnerable American carriers, remains frustratingly out of reach. Every time the range closes, something drives them off again. The realization begins to harden, cold and unwelcome. Even if these are only escorts, they are buying time at a cost Kurita cannot calculate. Fuel is burning, ammunition is being spent, and above all, the longer he remains, the greater the risk that the real American fleet will arrive and trap him where escape is impossible. On the bridges of surviving American ships, there is no sense of victory, only exhaustion, only the knowledge that they are still alive for now. Men reload by hand, wounded are moved where they can be moved. Smoke screens are renewed with shaking hands. No one believes they can hold forever. They are not meant to. They are meant to delay, to confuse, to convince. And incredibly, it is working. Kurita faces a decision that history will judge in silence rather than certainty. Press on into a fight that feels wrong against an enemy that should not be this dangerous, or pull back, preserve the fleet, and live to fight again. The horizon remains unclear. The smoke refuses to lift. Then the order comes down the line, a turn to the north, disengage. The American carriers survive another minute, then another, and far out at sea, the most powerful surface force Japan has assembled begins to withdraw, leaving behind a field of burning water and broken ships that never should have been able to stop it. But the cost is not yet fully paid. The Japanese turn begins slowly, almost cautiously, as if the sea itself might object. Battleships swing their bows north, heavy cruisers follow, destroyers rushing to cover the movement. Guns that moments ago were hammering the smoke now fall silent or fire only sporadically. The great force that came expecting annihilation pulls away, not in panic, but in doubt. Kurita does not know it yet, but this is the moment the battle is decided. On the American side, no one cheers. There is no signal that says the enemy is retreating, no clear confirmation that the danger has passed. Smoke still hangs thick, and shells still fall, though farther now. The surviving ships of Taffy 3 are wrecks, burning, flooding, barely moving. The sea is littered with oil, debris, and men struggling in the water. The carriers continue to flee eastward, engines pushed beyond limits, decks scarred and slick with fuel and blood. USS Johnston is gone, USS Hoel is gone, Samuel B. Roberts will soon follow. The screen that bought the retreat has been shattered almost completely, and yet the carriers live. The planes keep flying. The impossible has already happened, though no one dares to say it aloud. Kurita's staff works frantically to reform the fleet. Reports are confused, delayed, contradictory. Damage assessments come in piecemeal. A heavy cruiser is crippled, others are slowed. Destroyers are low on fuel and ammunition. Air attacks, though lighter now, still harass the withdrawing ships. Kurita's mind returns again and again to the same question: where is the American main force? He does not know that it is far away. He does not know that the ships that charged him were never meant to win, only to deceive. All he knows is that something feels wrong, and in war, wrong feelings kill fleets. As the Japanese disappear into the distance, the water around Taffy 3 grows quieter. Fires burn unchecked on crippled hulls. Men cling to rafts and wreckage. The wind carries cries across the slick surface. Destroyers and escorts that still float turn back when they can, risking renewed attack to pull survivors from the sea. Every face is hollow with exhaustion. Every movement hurts. The shock settles in slowly. Against battleships and heavy cruisers, they have survived. But survival is not the end of the story. The sea after battle is never silent. It hisses where fires meet water. It groans where twisted metal shifts with the swell. Around Samar, the morning light reveals the true cost of the stand. Ships reduced to floating skeletons, oil spreading in rainbow sheens, bodies drifting where formations once moved with purpose. Survivors from Johnston are pulled from the water hours later. Many are wounded. Some are burned beyond recognition. Commander Ernest Evans is not among them. He went down with his ship. Last seen directing fire as shells tore through the bridge. For his actions, he will receive the Medal of Honor, though no medal can weigh what was asked of him or what he gave. On the remaining American ships, the realization begins to spread. The Japanese are gone, truly gone. Radio intercepts confirm it. Lookouts see only empty horizon. What remains is disbelief, followed by a heavy, sinking grief. The men know how close it came. They know how thin the line was. A few more minutes, a clearer report, a single decisive order in the other direction, and everything would have ended here. Kurita, steaming north, begins to understand fragments of the truth too late. Reconnaissance reports hint that the enemy carriers were small. Prisoners later will confirm it. The realization is a quiet one, carried not by anger but by something colder. He had the power to destroy them. He turned away. History will debate his decision endlessly. Fuel shortages, air threats, confusion, responsibility to preserve the fleet. All are true, none erase the outcome. At Samar, courage created an illusion so convincing that it altered the course of the largest naval battle in history. And the price was paid by men whose ships were never meant to fight that day. News of the action spreads rapidly through both navies. In the American command, disbelief turns into awe. Reports describe destroyers charging battleships, destroyer escorts firing until guns melt, carriers surviving under fire meant to obliterate them. Admirals read the summaries twice, then a third time, searching for exaggeration. There is none. For Japan, the shock is quieter but deeper. Samar becomes a lesson in missed certainty. The Imperial Navy had sought a decisive surface engagement for years. At Leyte Gulf, it finally had won against an enemy far weaker than expected and let it slip away. The psychological blow is immense. If even overwhelming power cannot guarantee victory, what remains? Among the survivors of Taffy 3, memory hardens into something permanent. They remember the sound of shells arriving before they could be heard firing, the way the sea rose like walls, the sight of friends vanishing in smoke. They remember believing, with perfect clarity, that they would not live through the morning and acting anyway. This is the core truth of Samar, not tactics, not tonnage, not orders, but behavior, the refusal of small ships to act small. Naval analysts will later describe the battle in technical terms: misidentification, smoke screens, torpedo threats, air harassment, all accurate, all incomplete. What Kurita faced was not just a formation, but a mindset. Every American ship behaved as if retreat was impossible, as if attack were the only language available. That behavior rewrote the scale of the battlefield. It turned destroyers into perceived cruisers, escorts into phantom task forces, desperation into apparent dominance. War is fought by machines, but decided by perception, and at Samar, perception collapsed under the weight of courage. For the men who fought there, the idea of legacy is distant. What matters is survival. What matters is getting home. Some never will. The sea keeps them. The Battle off Samar occupies an uncomfortable place in naval history. It should not have happened. The forces were mismatched beyond reason. Doctrine did not allow for such outcomes, and yet it stands as one of the clearest demonstrations of how human action can bend events away from logic. Taffy 3 did not win by sinking the enemy. It won by convincing him he had already lost control. That is a rarer victory and a more fragile one. It cannot be planned. It can only be lived. Today, the waters off Samar look calm. No smoke, no fire, only open sea, but beneath it lie ships that charged battleships and refused to turn away. Their steel is quiet now, but their actions echo far beyond the waves. Japanese admirals were stunned that morning, not by American firepower, but by American audacity, by the sight of small ships attacking as if size were irrelevant, by the realization that certainty can be shattered by men who decide together that fear will not dictate their course. At Samar, the horizon lied, and because it did, history turned.